Ask Angelina, but before we get into today's episode, I want to remind you that if you like my podcast, please follow, rate, and share it with your friends and family. So picture this. It's your last weekend in Tanzania, and what do? Well, my housemate Chloe introduced us the idea of going on a day trip to Serval Wildlife. Serval Wildlife is a sanctuary and hotel with over 1,000 acres of land and a variety of animals living on its grassy area. These animals are ethically obtained from zoos and other places. This sanctuary is meant to protect injured animals while also maintaining their natural behaviors and eventually rehabilitating them into the wild with the help of organizations like TAWA and Tawiri. And what's really special about these animals is that with the guidance of an animal keeper, you can pet them. So starting back to when we first arrived to Serval Wildlife after a long drive from Arusha, we went to the restaurant to eat some lunch and meet our guide who would show us around the area. The lunch was not bad with some pizza, spaghetti, and some juices. But what really caught my attention was the servals walking around the room. If you didn't know what a serval is, which I also didn't know what it was at the time, a serval is a medium-sized African wildcat with a spotted pattern fur like a cheetah and long legs and large pointy ears like a fox. They are kind of like savanna cats but more wild-like. They are really playful and jumpy around humans. If you get the chance, search them up and they're spelled out as Serval. Anyway, when the servals came in, they started to walk around and jump on the tables to relax. People started to line up to take selfies with them, with an animal keeper nearby, of course. It was so cool that we didn't even get to start the tour and we already met a special animal. Then we finally met our guide and he brought us to the grassy plain trail and it felt like I was watching National Geographic because when we went closer to the animals and the mountain, I saw a lilac-breasted roller birds flying around, zebras in one area mixed with giraffes and wildebeest, and gazelles in the higher areas, and I even saw a monkey with his keeper next to a tree. And guess who was sleeping when we first got onto the trail? A lion, right next to her keeper in a tree. I felt so lucky to be there, and my reaction the entire time was wow, with my jaw dropped. We got to pet and feed almost all the animals except the birds who kept flying away and gazelles since they kept sprinting away from people. I even got to pet the lion, who was sitting in a tree, and also hugged the giraffes, who sat down for a little break. It was such an amazing experience with so many pictures and memories that will last a lifetime. I think this is so worth it to go, and perhaps a hot take, it is better than the safaris. So next time you go to Tanzania, visit Serval Wildlife. But one experience that many tourists go to Africa for are the safaris. In Tanzania, the most famous safaris are the Tarangire National Park with elephant herds, Serengeti National Park, which is a vast land where animals cross during the Great Migration, and you can see the big 5 animals, which are the lion, leopard, elephant, buffalo, and rhino. And where I went is Ngorongoro Crater, which is a conservation area protected by UNESCO, where you have to go down a crater to see the animals and wildlife. So let's hear from Penelope on her thoughts about our experience.
So for the safari, the most enjoyable thing would definitely be to see all the animals and the nature, which, is you don't see that in everyday life. So that was pretty cool. It was also really nice to see the animals living in their natural environment and, knowing they're free and happy, because where I come from, you usually just see animals in the zoo. And, I hate that because, they're not free and that's not their natural environment. So it was really nice to see all this and the nature and the animals preserved as it should be. Also, the weather was good, which was really good. Initially at the top of the crater is so foggy and you cannot see anything below. That was pretty stressful because I thought we couldn't see anything once we get there because literally all you can see is just a white horizon, nothing else, which was also kind of cool. If anyone is planning on going on this particular safari, You should know that the route to the crater from the mountain is maybe a bit scary at times, especially if it's bad weather because it's usually like foggy and has a lot of people. It's a bit narrow and steep. But the driver is experienced. So, I mean, you should have that in mind if you're scared of stuff like that, just so there's no surprises. But yeah, the driver will reassure you that he knows what he's doing and you don't have to worry about that. Also, probably try to listen to the driver because he's probably going to say a few things about the place you're at. And if you don't listen, he will get mad. And then when we were at the crater, there was like this clearing, like no clouds, just very sunny. Oh, I got sunburn as well, so like bring SPF definitely. And yeah, then we could just see the top of the mountains with all of this clouds over them. My reactions were definitely the entire time. I was like, oh my God, wow. And pretty much everyone's reactions were like that. From start to end, honestly, like even the journey there, even before getting to the crater, it was all so nice. Different than what we're used to. Like even on the way there, an elephant crossed the road like right in front of us. So yeah, the entire time we were in awe basically. I would rate it a 9 or 8.5, and not 10 because the timetable, like the schedule, wasn't kept. We went back to our house at a much, much later time than we expected, which was still cool because the day was like full of activities. Like we even stopped to see the Maasai village. Maasai is like a tribe, which was very, very cool. But yeah, at some point, it got a bit tiring because we started the day very early and, went back very late. So we were exhausted. These types of safaris start really early in the morning. So definitely get a good rest the night before because we all did fall asleep on the way there. It would have been nice for the schedule, to be kept. Also, there was lunch provided and breakfast. We had to ask the driver once we were like getting very hungry. So we had to wait for a long time to actually eat. There wasn't a specific time for us to eat. We just had to, apparently, like we didn't know, but we had to tell the driver when we were hungry to eat. We expected there was like a specific time where we would eat, but then we were getting hungry and we were not getting to lunch. So yeah, that's why I rated 8.5 or 9. Yeah, 8.5. And also, definitely recommend to bring a comb for your hair because you want to have the windows open at a lot of times and it gets very windy and you get a lot of dust in your hair. So definitely bring a comb because I didn't, and my hair the next day it was a nightmare to comb. It was also really nice to have some binoculars to see the lines from afar because the lines were really far. They don't come to the road. And yeah, the driver gives you binoculars, so you don't have to bring. Surprisingly, there was signal there, so I could use my data and like video call my family. I literally called them and showed them where I was, which was nice. But then again, don't overdo it with being on your phone. But it might be a nice idea to video call someone close to you if you're not there with them. Other than bring SPF and a comb, and obviously expect to be flexible with times, take a lot of pictures because you're gonna want to see them afterwards and like remember everything. But don't overdo it. I would definitely say some points just, maybe put the camera down and actually absorb everything with your own eyes because a lot of the time when you have a camera in front of you, you don't really, take it in as much in real life. So yeah, definitely take a lot of pictures, but then also don't overdo it because, then when you look at the picture, it's going to be like the same picture. So, and if you can, go with people so you can share this experience, just really nice. A shout out to Haruka. I don't know if she's in the podcast, but she was at the safari, and Linda, and obviously Angelina. Because, yeah, we went together and we had a great time.
Thank you so much, Penelope, for sharing your thoughts on this safari experience. As Penelope mentioned, Haruka was someone that also came with us on the safari. She wanted me to share her ideas on the safari experience. However, she is learning English and is busy in Tanzania right now. She's staying there for 3 months, working on a medical internship as a midwife in a local hospital. Since she is busy right now in Tanzania, I asked her to send me some answers to the questions I'll say right now. So the first question I asked her was, what was your first reaction from seeing the crater? Of course, seeing the animals on the safari was amazing, but what really took her breath away was the majestic view of the crater after going up the mountain. When we were driving inside the crater, she was overwhelmed by the scenery of the animals. She was able to enjoy the natural beauty that she normally wouldn't get to see or feel in everyday life. The second question I asked her was, how would you rate it on a scale from 1, being the absolute worst, never go again, to a 10, which is absolutely recommend to others? So she said she would definitely give it a 10. She said that she will definitely share her safari experience with her family and friends, and in her country, which is Japan, she said it's so rare to see grand nature and wild animals roam around. So she believes that anyone who goes would be deeply moved and truly enjoy it. The third question I asked her was, do you have any advice for people going on a safari for their first time? She said that it can get cold and windy, so bring a jacket or something you can throw on that makes it much more comfortable. Also, she said that everyone brought their cameras to capture the scenery and animals, so she thought that was such a great idea and a nice way to enjoy the experience even more. And I asked her, like Penelope, do you have any last words or shout-outs? And she said, spending time with everyone during the safari made my time in Tanzania even more meaningful. I hope you're doing amazing in Tanzania as a midwife. And we all had such an amazing time despite the unexpected wake-up call in the early morning and our safari times being shifted around. And listen to what Penelope and Haruka said because their advice is truly helpful. So the next time that you go on a safari, remember these tips. And remember to be respectful and gentle to the animals because loud noises can scare them away and you're trying to capture everything in the moment. Ask your guides a lot of questions because they are so knowledgeable of the area and the animals around in the area. So be sure to ask them questions and listen to them like Penelope said. And we might be speaking from personal experiences, so please listen to your driver, otherwise they'll get a bit annoyed. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode learning about 2 different experiences with animals in Tanzania. Next time that you go to Tanzania or Africa in general, remember these tips and you'll have an experience of a lifetime. Asante kwa kusikiliza. Thank you so much for listening and I hope you have an amazing day. Don't forget to follow, rate, and share this podcast with your friends and family. Goodbye!